The studio lights of The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson glowed warm and golden that night, but something in the air felt different. Behind the curtain stood John Wayne, the Duke, the man who had stared down outlaws, ridden through deserts, and carried the weight of the American West on his shoulders. For decades, he had been strength personified, a symbol, a legend. But tonight he looked tired. Out at the desk sat Johnny Carson, flipping his cue cards with that familiar calm charm. He had interviewed presidents, comedians, astronauts, but he knew this guest was different. This wasn't just a movie star walking out. This was America's cowboy. "Ladies and gentlemen," Johnny said smoothly, "my next guest is a true American original." The applause thundered as Wayne stepped through the curtain. He walked slower than people remembered. The crowd still roared, still worshipped. But beneath the applause was something softer: concern. He had been battling cancer. Rumors swirled. The public knew he wasn't as strong as before. Wayne sat down carefully. Johnny smiled. "It's always good to see you, Duke." Wayne gave that crooked half-grin. "Well, Johnny, it's good to still be seen." The audience laughed lightly, but his voice carried gravel, not just from age but from something deeper. They talked about films, about the old days in Monument Valley, about horses and directors and long desert shoots. Wayne told stories. The crowd leaned in. For a moment, he was the towering figure again, the man from True Grit, the marshal who never backed down. But then Johnny asked a simple question. "You've played the hero so many times. Ever get tired of carrying that image?" There was a pause. For the first time, John Wayne didn't answer right away. He looked down at his hands, hands that had drawn six-shooters on screen 100 times, hands that now trembled slightly under the studio lights. "Yeah," he said quietly, "sometimes." The audience grew still. "People think you're bulletproof," he continued. "They think the cowboy rides off into the sunset and that's the end of it. But real life," he cleared his throat, "real life doesn't give you retakes." Johnny's smile faded into something gentler. Wayne spoke about friends he'd lost, about the toll of years in the industry, about the surgeries, about waking up and not feeling 10 feet tall anymore. "There comes a time," he said, voice cracking just slightly, "when a man realizes he can't outride the sunset." No one laughed. This wasn't Rooster Cogburn talking. This wasn't a character. This was Marion Morrison, the man behind John Wayne. Johnny leaned forward. "You've meant a lot to people." Wayne nodded slowly. "I just hope I meant something good." There it was, not the bravado, not the swagger. Just a man wondering if he'd done enough. The applause that followed wasn't loud at first. It was soft, respectful. Then it swelled, longer than usual, not just for an actor, but for a chapter of American history slowly closing. When the segment ended and the cameras faded to commercial, Wayne stood carefully. Johnny reached out instinctively, steadying him. For a brief second, the audience saw it. The cowboy needed help standing. And somehow, that made him more heroic than ever. Months later, when news spread that John Wayne was gone, many remembered that night on Carson's couch. Not because he promoted a movie, not because he cracked jokes, but because for once, the strongest man in Hollywood allowed himself to be human. And America loved him not for the guns he fired on screen, but for the quiet courage he showed when the lights were brightest and the sunset was near.